Long before he was known in Washington, Gerald Ford showed his character and his leadership. As a star football player for the University of Michigan, he came face to face with racial prejudice when Georgia Tech came to Ann Arbor for a football game. One of Michigan's best players was an African-American student named Willis Ward. Georgia Tech said they would not take the field if a black man were allowed to play. Gerald Ford was furious at Georgia Tech for making the demand and for the University of Michigan for caving in. The stand Gerald Ford took that day was never forgotten by his friend.
Georgia Tech said they wouldn't take the field if Willis Ward suited up for that game. And he was telling me the story, and he said, your father was so incensed, he thought that was such an injustice that his good friend Willis Ward couldn't play in that game, that he said he was going to write his father a letter in Grand Rapids and quit the University of Michigan football team to make basically a stand for his friend Willis Ward.
Sing to the colors that float in the light, hurrah for the yellow and blue.
That Willis Ward was benched. It's a rise and fall story. It seems that he loses in the end, but he really did not lose, because the protest letters and the willingness on the part of Gerald Ford to want to sit out the game, and the vast number of individuals who came to support Willis Ward in his efforts against the University of Michigan ultimately laid a foundation for other civil rights activity that came after.
Groups on campus, not only just students but professors, took sides. Most of the student organizations, of course, I believe they called their group the United Ward Front, and their demands were very simple. Either Ward plays or the game should be canceled.
The whole idea of Michigan, from James B. Angel and down, was to provide an uncommon education for the common man. If that does not include African Americans, you've missed a big part of that promise, haven't you? So the students were very strongly on Willis Ward's side, and keep in mind, he's a star on 2 national title teams. One has to conclude he didn't hurt them very much, don't you? He clearly earned his stripes, and he was beloved by all accounts.
That was a big deal to him, and he absolutely talked about his friendship with Jerry. I don't think I necessarily knew exactly who he was at the time. I was 6 or 7 when his election for president was happening. So it wasn't until later on that I realized that Jerry was the president of the United States.
Yeah, Michigan changed. The university, the state, the country. Ford contributed to that change. So it was that constructive anger. And you're right, it never affected in any way the love, which is not too strong a word, he felt for the University of Michigan.
Founded in the wilderness in 1817, in excellence.
It's not a story about Georgia Tech or Michigan. It's a story about 2 men and their friendship back in 1934.